What do you think happens to you after you die? And even more so, does it even make a difference in how you live your life today? My name is Rabbi Yitzwein of Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Life is Great, where every Sunday morning we examine a new universal value that is derived from Judaism to see how we can live our best lives possible. Good morning and welcome back. You know, we Jews have a very definite tradition in terms of life after death. We have definite traditions about everything, and it's very important to understand the composition of a body and a soul as they go together and what happens when we pass from this world. It's very interesting. There's a story told of a person. He's doing his taxes and his accountant calls him up and he says, "Hey, Mr. Schwartz, I noticed that you sent some very large donations to a church, to a synagogue, to a mosque, to a Buddhist temple, and you even sent something to the Society of Atheists. I'm just wondering, by the way, what is your religion?" And Schwartz said, "Well, the truth is I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I figure I'm not going to be around forever, so I may as well cover all my bases." Okay? Now, a lot of people stop and say, wait a second, you know, what really does happen when we pass from this world to the next? And I will share with you, being a rabbi for over 20 years, one of the most important and comforting concepts I can discuss with a family when they are grieving over a lost one is what actually happens to our soul. Where does it go? And is it really relevant for how we live today? So I went over to my favorite coffee bean and I asked some of you, tell me, what do you think about life after death? And is it really relevant for how you live your life today? Let's take a look at what some of you had to say. Marco, do you believe in life after death?
I do. I do believe in life after death, yes.
Does it make a difference in how you live your life today?
Yes, it makes a big difference, yes.
Well, what's the difference?
Just have to make sure whenever you pass by another life or you pass in a better life, they call it, and you're going to rest, you make sure you're in peace with God. That's what I believe. And you make sure whatever you do to yourself and to others is going to be reflected in your second life, if we say it that way.
Beautiful. Do you believe in life after death?
I don't know.
Wow, okay. Does it affect how you live your life by the fact that you don't believe in life after death?
I feel like I appreciate the limited time that I have here more because I don't think that there's anything after this.
Perfect. Great, thank you. All right, so you see there are different opinions in terms of what happens after we die. Well, I will share with you that in Judaism we have some very definite traditions about everything in life, including life after death. Now, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, nobody has died and then come back and told us whether or not we are right or wrong. But at the same time, we are very confident in the same way that we have all kinds of traditions in terms of how we behave, traditions in terms of our holidays. We are very confident about this philosophy, our definition of a body and a soul, the role, the combination of the two of them, and then what happens after we die, and what happens in the world to come, vis-a-vis heaven and the Jewish concept of hell, reincarnation, and all of these things. But let's get straight into it. Why is it so important, first of all, to know that there is something after we pass on from this world? See, if you look in the Torah, when God created Adam, he created Adam as a physical being, and then he blew into him a neshama, a soul. And that is the definition of a human being. It's a combination of a body and a soul. So important is this, and relevant for our daily lives, is that in Judaism we would say that it should affect most of the decisions we make throughout the day. In other words, like this: if I know that I'm a body and I'm a soul, so then I will understand the priorities in terms of the dynamic of free will. In essence, my body is, well, it kind of wants to fall asleep, it wants to go down on the ground. It's physical. My soul is striving for accomplishment. It's striving for a connection with the Almighty. If I can make decisions based on asking the question, is this my higher self that is pushing me to do something, or my lower self that's pushing me to do something? Is it something that more resembles, is my desire something that resembles an angel or a spiritual being? Or perhaps it's something that's resembling an animal and a lower being. immediately you can see that just by asking that question as I go through the day, I will be able to alter perhaps my decisions and my behaviors. That's the first and most important part of understanding there's life after death. We all know our bodies die. They turn into basically a piece of meat and they decompose in the ground. We all know that. But that's not us. And you ask yourself, what is you? Look in the mirror and say, what is me? If you got rid of an arm, are you any less you? Got rid of a couple of legs, both your arms, both your legs. Are you still less you? When I ask you, point to yourself, where are you pointing? Some of you are pointing over here, but many of you, most of you are pointing right here. You're pointing to your heart. You're pointing to something in here. So we have to recognize that our bodies are not us. What is our body? What is our soul? There are two different compositions that are put in this world to work together. You have to view it a little bit like your body is kind of your car. It's a rental car, right? You fly up to Paris. You only have a layover of 8 hours before you're continuing on to your final destination. What do? You go out there, check your baggage, rent a car, and go around, see as many sights as you can see in that layover. That's what you do. Your soul comes down into your body in this world, and then the body carries it around, and you do all sorts of good things, hopefully. Once in a while you make a mistake. And then at the end of a period of time, the maximum time in Judaism would be 120 years, just because that's how long Moses lasted for, and therefore we give each other a blessing. You should live to be 120 years old, right? So therefore, the body and the soul, they separate. The body goes in the ground, and the soul goes to the next world. That's the first relevance in terms of understanding the difference between the body and the soul, the relationship. You have a tension there, free will tension, a tension between my higher self, my lower self. And I would encourage you to go around and, as you go throughout the day, ask yourself, is this my higher self that's pushing me to do this, or is it my lower self? Now, what your relationship is between your body and soul, how you view your body, actually is going to depend on how you die. Now, we know what death is. Death is a separation of the body and the soul. But the Talmud gives two possible options for death. One way is that when the soul separates from the body, it can be like taking a thorn and pulling it through some wool, right? You can say it rips apart. It's a painful way to leave this world. The other way is by taking a hair just off the top of a glass of milk. There's just a little bit of tension, but when you pull it off, it's just gone. So there'll always be a little bit of tension. But depending on my relationship with my body and who I am, that'll depend on how difficult it is for my soul to pick up and leave this world. And remember, the Talmud also gives us this analogy in terms of the relationship of the body and the soul of a horse and a rider. That you know that you have a horse is a very, very powerful thing. And if it's controlled by a rider who knows what he's doing, then you can accomplish a lot of things. However, if you have a horse that is in control without a rider, then it runs wild and it can cause all sorts of havoc. When our bodies are left out of control and our bodies are making our decisions, our lower self, it's an animal, and all of a sudden it can cause all sorts of havoc in our world. But if our souls are directing our bodies, then we can actually accomplish some very, very, very beautiful things. And when the end of our time in this world comes, then and it is time for a separation between the soul and the body, so then it's just a little bit of tension, and then the soul can go on and take care of what it needs to take care of. Question is, what does it need to take care of? So let's go through exactly what happens after we die. What is the experience that our soul will go through? Now, before I share with you Jewish tradition's take on it, I also went back to Coffee Bean and asked some of you what your perception was of going to the next world. And I even asked, what do you think God will ask you when you show up there? Let's see what some of you had to say.
I believe that you become a spirit. You go to heaven, I believe, in the kingdom with God, and your family. I believe I'll see my loved ones and be happy.
Any questions you're asked? Is God going to ask you any questions?
I feel like God already knows, so he's either going to accept you or reject you.
All right.
That's how I feel.
That's the first question I think is going to be. If you've been good with yourself and with another ones, in just with your loved ones as well.
And if you've been good, what happens? How does he reward you? Or does he reward you?
I think he just reward you to see your loved ones to be good, and you can see them from where you're going to be, and I think you're just going to rest in peace.
Welcome back. Now, let's go through the order of what happens to the soul after it leaves the body. Now, remember, perhaps the most significant part of understanding that you are a soul and not just a body, but your body and a soul together, is to understand that every single action that we do, every thought we think, and every word we speak is significant. There are things that we do in this world, we say, it was nothing. No, everything we do is something. Sometimes you do something bad and you say, just like, we'll sweep it under the rug. Don't worry about it. No one will notice. Well, you know what? The concept of the next world means that no, someone will notice and we will be called out on that bad thing. So we have to kind of fix it before we pass on to the next world. Sometimes you do something good for people and they go, and thank you so much. And you're tempted to say, it was nothing. Never say it was nothing, because to them, it was something. It might have been something, it might have been easy for you to do. It might have even been your pleasure, but it was something. Everything we do is significant because, as we are going to see, everything we do, we will be held accountable for in a good way, for a sense of reward and a sense of correction. Let's begin with the process. This is what happens. A person is sitting there, they get ill, and all of a sudden the Almighty determines it is time for their body and their soul to separate. So it separates. The soul hovers over the body. Now, if you've ever been present when someone dies, you'll notice that all of a sudden, and it is sudden, their color changes, and they literally go from being a human being to literally being a piece of meat. If you've ever had that experience, you look at this and say, oh my, there's a change. You know when a soul exits the body. So now the soul is hovering over the body, and it stays hovering over the body until the person is buried in the earth. And that's why in Judaism, we first of all bury people as quickly as possible. In Israel, very rarely is a person buried after 24 hours. I mean, it happens within the same day. And even in America, we do it as quickly as we possibly can. We also do not cremate our dead, because there has to be a process. What happens to the body? The body goes in the ground. And again, in Israel, they just wrap you up in shrouds and put you directly in the ground. Here, we put you in a plain pine box that actually has holes drilled into it so that the body can decompose in the most natural, really, hopefully, quickest way possible. Because the decomposition of the body is good for the soul. The soul is there, it's present. And as the soul watches the body decompose, it realizes that this is not me. And have you ever looked at a person who spends hours and hours and hours looking in the mirror just like this and they really view their bodies as me? That person is in for a very troubling and difficult pathway in the next world. It really is. Rather, the soul is educated and says, oh, you know what? That's not me. It's okay. And as soon as the body is decomposed, as soon as it's buried, and then the decomposition, things happen in stages, the soul goes to the world of souls. Now, the world of souls has two parts to it. The first part is an education process. The next part is a process of pleasure and reward. In essence, if I can modernize the Talmudic explanation of what happens to our souls, is you show up there, you're now in the world of souls, you're surrounded by all the people you love and the people you respect, and basically, you see two movies at the same time. Maybe God will give you a Diet Coke, popcorn. No, you're not getting a Diet Coke. You're not getting a popcorn. There's no body, it's just a soul. So you're in the presence of the Almighty, and you're in the presence of all the people you love and respect. And you're seeing two movies. You're seeing what you did throughout your life, and you're also seeing what you could have done. And that's why the Talmud tells us that we are judged on what we did and what we could have done, the potential. The discrepancy between what we did do and what we could have done, that is emotionally painful. It's disappointing. And if you've ever sat and thought, wow, gee whiz, I really should be doing more with my life, the answer is go do more with your life. Because to the extent that we know we could have done more and we did not do more, that's the extent of pain we feel. The Talmud explains that it could be a pain of embarrassment, like, oh, gee whiz, the Almighty gave me a beautiful life, and what did I do with it? Or it can be a pain of, literally, a person would be burned by their neighbor's canopy. In other words, I'll see, this is what my neighbor did. My friend, he did all sorts of good deeds, and I did very few good deeds. And I'll say, why didn't I do that deed? Why didn't I keep the Sabbath? Why didn't I honor my parents? Why didn't I live with more joy and happiness and gratefulness? And we will ask ourselves that because it'll be revealed to us in those two movies that are running simultaneously. It will be revealed to us that we could have been happier. We could have been more grateful. We could have been more accomplished. If only we tried just a little more. If we listened to our higher self and we did not listen to our lower self. So that discrepancy, there's a name for that. It's called Gehenna. Now, if I wanted to translate it into English, I would call it hell. That is the Jewish concept of hell. We say that it only lasts, for the worst person in the world, it would last even less than a year. Which is why, by the way, when we say the memorial prayer of the Kaddish, a prayer that we say when we are mourning for someone who passed away, we only say it for 11 months. Because we say, no one was that bad to go through this process for a full year, so we'll stop saying it after 11 months. But the essence of it is, it's a sense that I'll be burned by my neighbor's canopy. I'll see all the things I could have done, and it'll be an education process. Before I continue on with the really good parts of the next world, I want to address this issue of Gehenna, or hell. My rabbi was told that one of the things you should never talk about is this subject matter, because people in our generation, we don't want to hear about it. We don't want to hear that there might be difficulties laying ahead. As a matter of fact, if you ask people, go around and say, what do you think about the next world? Everyone's going to say, I think it's a better place. Intuitively, we think it's a better place. And we're going to have to deal with the issue of, if it is a better place, why not go there now? Right? We have to deal with that issue, but we'll deal with that later. The issue with our version, the Jewish version of Gehenna or hell, can be summarized like this. Do you live in a city where there is a hospital for cancer patients? You probably do. Do you ever want to go there? No, you don't. But if, God forbid, you or someone you loved ever needed such a hospital, you'd be really grateful that such a hospital exists. Our version of hell, Gehenna, is a spiritual hospital. That's the point of it. We go through our lives, we live this, maybe it's 70 years, maybe 120 years if we live the full amount. And we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. This is a place where we can correct those mistakes. See, hopefully we never have to go there. Hopefully what happens is after a day of living good and living a little creepy, a person says, you know what, I shouldn't have done this. And they say before they go to sleep at night, God, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that action. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have been negligent. And then they've done tshuva. They've repented. They make amends to the people they've harmed. And then the next day they live a better life. Hopefully a person does that. And hopefully before a person dies, they also go through that process of tshuva. And then they don't need Gehenna. They don't need to go to hell because they've taken care of whatever they've needed to take care of. But perchance they didn't. Let's say they went through their life and they denied that they made mistakes. So then, thank God, there's a place where we can go and we can kind of go through that treatment, so to speak, in order that we can get to the next stage of the world of souls, which is very pleasurable. Because the next stage, after the, say, 11 months of Gehenna, then you go to a position where you experience every one of your spiritual pleasures that you had in this world, except you experience it in an unbridled sense in the next world. So for example, let's say you're in love. You look at your child, you look at your spouse, and a good friend. You say, I'm so lucky to have them in my life, and you appreciate them. At the same time, while you're in love, while you're beaming away, And while the butterflies are in your tummy and everything's nice, your neck hurts. You're worried about, oh, how am I going to make that credit card payment? So therefore, the pleasure is not pure. So get rid of all the distractions and just feel the pleasure. You do the pleasure of doing the right thing. You did something really special. You accomplished something nice. You brightened somebody's day. That's fantastic. You raised a child. Perhaps you had a spiritual experience. You went to Zion National Park and the Grand Canyon. You breathed and feeling the love of the Almighty. Maybe you had a spiritual experience. At the same time, you were worried about, this issue you had with your kids, or perhaps someone else had ticked you off right beforehand and got a little under your skin, said something you didn't like. Those wonderful pleasures in this world were not pure, because this world is a mixed up world. But in the next world, God removes all those distractions. So you can really get a sense of all the beauty and the spiritual pleasures you have. And we exist that way until the Jewish year 7000. It means at that time, whoever is alive in the year 7000, they die. And then God takes our souls and reunites them with a physical body. And we exist in this world in a very similar state that Adam and Eve existed in the Garden of Eden before they sinned, before they ate from the fruit and got kicked out. And that is what we call Olam Haba, the next world. That is a place where we actually have true reward and punishment. That is a time when all the scores get settled, so to speak. The first stage after a person dies is the world of souls. You go through your Gehenna for a little bit, you correct, you say, this is what I could have done, this is what I should have done. All right, now you're educated. Now you have a better perspective of life. Then you experience all the spiritual pleasures of this world, which, by the way, should inspire us to have more spiritual pleasures. If you enjoy learning and growing, you know what? Realize that learning and growing, you're going to have more of that in the next world. So inspire yourself to get your tushy up off the couch and go to the YouTube and watch another edition of Life is Great, and listen to another edition of The Rabbi Show, and read the book Life is Great, and learn more Torah. And do give more to charity and help more people and experience those spiritual pleasures in a better way, because that's what we have to take with us. We don't take with us the ice cream cone. We don't take with us the nice house. We don't, as we say, that everyone gets buried in shrouds, and shrouds have no pockets, because you can't take it with you. So if you're investing your time in just the physical world, then maybe you want to reconsider your investments. Because the physical pleasures we have in this world, they're good, they're necessary, but they are not part of our eternity. And if we overinvest in them, so then perhaps they work against us in the next world. For the Almighty will stop and say, yes, it's great that you went and you traveled the world and you saw the beautiful creations I gave you. But there's experiencing the creations, and then there's living for the creations. And we want to make sure that we experience goodness in this world, but we don't turn our focus to living for the physical pleasures in this world. Now, obviously, I have not exhausted the entire topic of what happens after you die and what's the significance of each stage. We just kind of gave you a little taste of it today. What I would like to encourage you to do, however, is write down your questions. Please email them to me at rabbi@therabbishow.com. And God willing, next week, we will go through all of your questions and we will explore this topic in an even deeper way. Because I think if you can just stop for a moment, realize how incredibly impactful this material could be for you and those who you love. So I would also encourage you to go onto the YouTube, my channel, Yitz Wine, and spread this message around so that people can stop and they can realize, hey, wait a second. Sometimes I have a higher self that is pushing me to go in a direction, and sometimes I have a lower self that's pushing me in a direction. And to realize that everything we do in this world is very, very significant. And in the next world, we will be judged. We'll be judged with those things that we did do and those things that we could have done. And the Almighty loves us so much that He wants to give us a chance to experience our spiritual pleasures in an unbridled way, and that is something which we can look truly forward to in the next world. I'm Rabbi Yitzwine of Young Israel Aish Las Vegas. I want to invite you to come on by my synagogue over here in Las Vegas, and I promise to make you feel very, very welcome. And I want to wish you a blessing for the coming week, that the Almighty should inspire you to listen to your higher self, and that your life should be filled with meaningful and pleasurable accomplishments. Do you believe in a life after death?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. Does it affect how you live your life?
It does in a way, because I don't have like the fear of what's going to come after. So I don't spend my whole day dreading of what I need to get done and everything, because I just like to live life day by day, because I know that there's only a better place after this.
Okay.
So it's kind of comforting, so that way I don't have to really hassle every day. I can just live my life comfortably and know that I lived a good life, and then I'm just going to live a better one after that. I believe that we do go to a place that is not like our world now. I do believe we do transcend to another place, to where that it's kind of like where it's a place where we can better ourselves. So it's like a higher level of being.
Okay. And is God going to ask you some questions?
I'm sure he will.
What do you think he's going to ask you?
If I've lived a good life, and I think that I've helped people and affected others in a positive way in my life.
Great. Do you know someone who needs a little more happiness in their life? Maybe it's you who needs more happiness in your life. Yes, you've seen the Life is Great TV show. You perhaps have heard the Rabbi Show. But now it's time to get Life is Great, revealing the 7 secrets to a more joyful you. This book was something tangible that you can give your friends and family, where they can keep by their bedside, take it on vacation, leaf through it page at a time or chunk of pages at a time, and each time they will learn another secret, another tool that they can use in order to get the absolute most out of life. What better present can you give your friends and family than the wisdom to live a better life?
Want more wine? Turn your radio to AM 720 KDWN or go online to therabbishow.com to hear The Rabbi Show starting right after the news at 9 a.m.
Thank you so much for joining me today in Life is Great. You know, there are so many people that are benefiting from this television program, from the Rabbi Show radio program, our YouTube broadcasts, and reading my book, Life is Great. I want to thank all of you, and I want you to know that the only way we can continue to distribute and to do these programs are through your generous contributions to therabbishow.com. So I'd like to encourage you today to go to therabbishow.com and make some kind of donation. Everything is appreciated in order to help us continue to spread these positive values and enrich and enhance other people's lives. Thank you.